This past week was the Victoria's Secret fashion show, which happens every year in October. And it was really interesting to see how the brand approached this year's fashion show, because it was a complete retreat to where the brand was before they took a different direction. And it was interesting because I still think there's space for improvement. But overall, it was the OG models back in, their tiny aspirational frames. And they had invited really like the it girls on the internet. So like the top influencers, not by definition celebrities, but very much by different definition like influencers. So what was once regular women who now have hundreds of thousands or millions of followers. And they did a pretty guerrilla and aggressive campaign for them to all start talking about it before the show and then posting about it when they were at the show. And I want to talk about it.
Yeah, and I think you're I don't want to say brave, but that's why people listen to you, because you will talk about these topics that everybody's terrified of talking about, because they'll just say, oh, you're fat shaming. And that's not, I think we have to understand what aspirational means to humans, right? And who defines it. Like not everything is the same, but there are many businesses that have lost market share, because they missed a point.
Well, Victoria's Secret actually poses to me an interesting branding case study, because Victoria's Secret was at its highest in a different time. Mm-hmm. And I've spent quite a lot of time this week thinking about it, because there is something to the millennial and the Gen Z audience addressing that that's not only what society wants. And I don't think that that's wrong, right? Like, how I feel connected to the Victoria's Secret brand and what I want from the Victoria's Secret brand is more tied to who I am as a consumer. I want these aspirational supermodels. I understand I don't look like them, and I'm never going to look like them. And I would prefer to watch women walk down the runway in lingerie that are 6'2" and like in these crazy costumes, and they're tiny. It's really enjoying. It's like watching a basketball game to me. Like, this is like, these are crazy human beings that are worth admiring for what they are, because they're not normal, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're outliers. But in working through this in my mind in the past week, I think the issue that happened with Victoria's Secret is that the market changed. And Victoria's Secret should have done was continue to be who Victoria's Secret was, instead of trying to continue to maintain the entire market share. So what's interesting is Victoria's Secret entered into the market when mass market direct-to-consumer lingerie wasn't as accessible. Before, it was more department store, and it was like higher end brands, or it was like lower end brands that you would find at like lower end department stores. Victoria's Secret kind of marked that like emergence of more like niche retailers in a mass market, like going into
luxury,
malls.
like accessible
Premium.
luxury.
Yeah, accessible luxury or premium. And as e-commerce developed, as technology and digital developed, it became easier for more brands to enter into the market, and for that reason, the market changed, and there became an increased need for other kinds of undergarment and lingerie brands. And where Victoria's Secret failed is they tried to please everybody by trying to be greedy and keep the entire market segment, instead of continuing to only focus on, instead of it now being the entire market, a very strong 30%. And by not staying focused on who their brand is and who they satisfy, they like try to please everyone, and they lost everybody.
The luxury car companies did something similar when they kind of made cars that went down to the mid-size, or like the mid-level sedan.
Yeah, there's like 7 different BMWs or Audis, and you like don't know what's the expensive or the cheap one unless you really know.
And now the brand doesn't mean anything; it's the number after the brand, and that's all. But it's not. We're not comparing humans to cars, but we're comparing product offering and brand positioning.
No, but I don't think anyone should be confused about that. Yeah. Like, what the criticism on Victoria's Secret, outside of who the body types that they represented, also was a more general, like, it didn't reflect what all women want to wear. Mm-hmm. There was kind of 2 things going on with it, right? Like that very like boudoir, like, hyper feminine sexuality that, really kind of speaks to there being like a male partner or counterpart to that sexual relationship isn't what women wanted anymore, right? Like there was a lot of women wanted like bras that actually better fit them and like underwear that was like actually fit their bodies better. And because everybody wears underwear, there's like many different market segments for what people want in their underwear because it's something that everybody wears. Right? Like, and that's okay. Because the reason we started chatting about this is we walked by NYX, and NYX has done a fabulous job. They've done a great job for who their consumer is. I'm not their consumer, and I'm not buying from their store, their product. But I respect what they've built. Like they saw a gap in the market. They diverged and they created a great product. But that shouldn't be at the expense of shaming a brand that speaks to a consumer that wants that.
Or that's aspirational. Like there's just different segments. Like, and to me, if human behavioral psychology, like aspirational, humans want to see the best of whatever category. If you're in the aspirational. Like
but if you don't want to see that, you shouldn't have to watch it.
Yeah.
And I that's kind of is my, like, I agree with what you're saying. I agree with the standpoint that the only women that girls should like they shouldn't only be able to see those kinds of women.
Yeah.
But I do think we've come a far way since then, right? And we can continue to have fashion shows that can put those women on a runway because I would rather look at that. And if you don't want to, that's your prerogative. And I'm not telling you what you have to watch. But I think is the core takeaway of Victoria's Secret. And they're in this weird place now because they're trying to like backtrack and get back what they lost without, in my opinion, without really doing the work.
Yeah.
Like in my opinion, like I would have done this year, like I would have like leaked stuff. I would have been doing like behind the scenes. I would have done like a massive campaign.
Even embrace controversy, and sometimes like you can even fabricate controversy, like, but you want to embrace the haters sometimes to amplify the brand, because everybody's going to hate you if you're trying to be aspirational, and that's something people have to know. If you want to be the best in category, people are going to hate you. You're actually nobody until somebody hates you. If nobody hates you, you haven't done anything. You haven't pushed any boundaries. So, but what's happened in the corporate circles is they're terrified of haters or trolls. And so they end up doing nothing and they dilute the brand. But you need to lean into the controversy of what your positioning statement is.
Like, you make such a great point. Like, they should have tied this with like a Netflix documentary of that original founder, that I forget his name, that founded Victoria's Secret, and have the whole segment be on like, I just wanted to showcase the most beautiful women. The standard was so high. Like we had women fainting because they were just wanting to be in the show. Like they could have done this documentary that could have been launched like, July or August. And it really set up like the excitement for the.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is where business thinking comes in, which is not just socially pleasing everybody, because humans are frail in their ego. They want to wear things that they think make them look better. So if somebody looks at Victoria's Secret, it's aspirational, they put it on, they could look amazing in it and they love it, right? It's just like a guy who buys an expensive car who's fat, bald, and ugly, right? He thinks he's good looking in that car. You know what I mean? Like
no, but he is good looking in that car.
It's giving him some.
Yeah, he gives him the confidence. Like he does get it.
That's his buying decision. And so we have to understand the buying decision of human psyche if we want to increase sales or build a brand.
But I even think it's more complicated. I think it's simple to shit on Victoria's Secret because they used very beautiful and skinny models. But like at the end of the day, if I want, like, I'm not going to Victoria's Secret to get basics. Like that's not where you go to, like you don't go there. You go there to like get like
special occasion,
accessible lingerie. Like lingerie has always been something that's like at the high, like a Jean Paul Victor is very expensive. It's like $300 for a bra and like $300 for a tiny pair of underwear. So what Victoria's Secret also represented is that like it made that level of lingerie more accessible. Now Victoria's Secret isn't telling you that you're not beautiful if you don't look like the models they pick in their shoots. No different than Wolford isn't telling you that you're ugly if the woman that they're using for their tights is, using a slimmer model, or any other brand. Like and especially in something like intimates, it really just comes down to like, do you subscribe to buying lingerie? And if so, does that store check the box? Probably, because there's like the other options in the mall are like, I would call them like older lady stores. Like to me, like Levine on Rose, that doesn't speak to someone that's like in their 20s. Like it's a more mature woman. It's more lingerie in the concept of like their everyday wearables. Like, and because women who are 50, 60, older than that, the kind of underwear shops represented something different back then than they did. Like growing up, it was literally Victoria's Secret, or you got this stuff at like La Senza Girl, or Walmart. You know, like it wasn't, you didn't have to like, you didn't go with your mom to like a special bra shop and like get sized for the first one. Or at least, I mean, my friends didn't in the city.
I just think when you're building a brand, there's nothing wrong with being aspirational. We respect the top runners, the top painters, the top scientists. And if you're trying to be aspirational, nobody cares about average. And so you're not helping your brand by showing average if you're trying to build an aspirational feel.
Agreed. And I don't want to see chicks that look like me walking down the runway. Like the whole point is that it's like, I know that this is what most people look like.
You may be underselling yourself a little bit. You're a little aspirational, but
no.
Yes.
What that represents.
I know what you mean. No, you want things that make your imagination.
What the Victoria's Secret shows were so cool is like they were women from all over the world.
Yeah, that's true.
They
celebrated beauty.
There was
Asians,
Asian
Africans.
models, African models, South African. Like that's what made it so cool, is that it was such an array of beautiful women from all over the world that were models. And the Victoria's Secret show is so cool is it created modeling careers. So like a lot of the established supermodels, like they would really close the show. But then in the beginning, it was like all of these younger up and coming models. And it was a cool way to see into the world of fashion. Like fashion is supposed to be aspirational. You don't need any clothes you see on the runway. You have to want it. And in order to want it, you have to create desire. And to create desire has to be something outside of the norm and what's regular. So it was a space to see where fashion was going. Because although Victoria's Secret was like an all-American mall brand, that is literally where Gigi Hadid, all of these famous models came out of. And if you cared about that, that was the site to see it. It was the American moment of like, this is going to be the next generation of models.
Very interesting. And I think finally, like people will try to pull you down to where they are. If you're aspirational, you can't guide yourself by what people who aren't in your market are telling you what to do.
Okay.
Right?
I think though a good point to go through though is you can be successful without being aspirational.
Yes.
But if you are an aspirational brand, and that's the point with Victoria's Secret is they were always an aspirational brand. They were established as an aspirational brand. The whole thing was like Victoria's Secret. You know, the name is even like, you don't like, maybe you will find out. And then that's where the market changed, is that access to everyday undergarments didn't need to be aspirational. There was a demand and a need for women who didn't want that aspirational feel. And that's where the market expanded. And Victoria's Secret didn't need to be for everyone.